Hey there, this is Andrew, and instead of bringing you my usual Keyforge content, today I am going to be reviewing a game, a new board game that is going to be on Kickstarter in the next couple of days, and this game is called Regency. It's a 2 to 6 player strategy game. It focuses on tableau building, but unlike other tableau building games that I've played or that you may have played, like Race for the Galaxy, Seven Wonders, and Wingspan, Regency is less focused on tableau building as an engine exercise where the interesting element of the game and the complexity comes from the complexity of the engine, and it's way more focused on player interaction. And so the engine component that I'll describe here is really simple compared to those other games I mentioned. But the player interaction is just constant, and that is where the depth and the interesting interactions in the game come from. So just to set the stage, I guess, before I go into this, Regency is being developed by a friend of mine, James Fazio, and I've gotten to participate in playtesting a few times, as well as occasionally giving a couple of helpful ideas for mats and things like that, because I like mats, you might know. So anyway, so yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's been a fun game to see grow, and I'm excited to share it with you. So, all right, let me just give a couple more highlights of things. This game, the box says, here's the box again, the box says that this game is rated for 20 to 40 minutes, and I think that's about right, although really once everybody knows how to play this game, it goes pretty quick. The turns are really snappy and quick. Even with 6 players, each player's turn is not very long, so everybody tends to stay engaged. There's just not a lot of downtime. And then because of that, the game is often short. That makes it potentially a candidate for being like a filler game if you're planning on playing, a big game, but you want something to play while you're waiting for everybody to arrive, or you finished and you just want to do one more thing before everybody goes home. However, the nature of the game is that there are often really close finishes, and you're gonna tend to be left feeling like, but if this had just gone my way a little more, then I could have won. And I think that element, that tends to push towards this being something you're gonna want to play many times in a row. So it totally can be a filler, but fair warning, I think you're going to go, I really want to do that again. So, I mean, that's a good thing. It's not a terrible warning. Okay, so Regency is, I don't even want to say set. It's set in history, but in Regency, you are each playing a regent who is trying to fill out your fiefdom as represented by this board here, this card. So throughout the game, there is this area in the middle called the populace that will always have 6 citizens in it. And the way you win is by getting by attracting citizens from the populace, typically from the populace, although part of the player interaction thing here is that you could also be attracting them from other players. But you can attract citizens from the populace to your fiefdom, and then they will fill one of these, they'll be assigned to one of these 6 cast roles. And the cast roles here are, that word can mean a lot of different things, but here it's just referring to the kind of job or role in society that they would fill. So are they a noble? Are they a warrior? Are they a brigand? A craftsperson? Are they a trader? Are they a common person? Are they religious? So they're filling these different roles in society, and the type of citizen determines what roles they can fill. So, for example, some citizens are what are called common citizens, and they are only eligible to fill a particular caste role. So this piratey guy here is a brigand. If I attract him to my fiefdom, he's going to be assigned to the brigand role. So and you tend to tuck them under here. The nice thing is those icons are along the top and the bottom, so they're visible even once a card is tucked. So there, I've attracted that to my citizen. Now I have that role filled. So when you have all 6 roles filled, you immediately win, and that's the end of the game. Now, some citizens are eligible for multiple caste roles. So, for example, this I want to say this is, this could be Joan of Arc, but I don't think that it is. But who knows? They're eligible for noble, religious, or warrior role. That actually really would fit Joan really well, wouldn't it? So, if I attract this citizen to my fiefdom, then I can choose which of those 3 castes to assign them to. So I could say, okay, I want her to go to the religious slot, and that's totally fine. That's my option. And if someone else later to attract her from my fiefdom to theirs, they could change which role she's assigned to. So that's the populace, and that's how you win. Once you have all 6 filled, you're done. Now, obviously, it seems like it would be better to have these privileged citizens who can fill more than one role. However, who have some flexibility. However, those tend to also be a little easier for your opponents to steal away from you. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Now, okay, the actual game flow on a turn is driven, though, mostly by events. So on a typical turn, you'll start with 4 event cards in your hand, and there's a deck that everybody's drawing from. And the most boring thing that you can do with these event cards, I will show you, is use them for their influence. So the influence is printed in the lower left, and then I'll get to the more interesting thing later. I just think I like better starting with the boring option. So, but this is typically how you're going to end your turn, is by doing this with whatever cards you have. You're gonna spend the influence. So in this case, I have 6 influence to spend, and I use that to attract a citizen from the populace. And the value here is interesting. It's not printed on the cards because it has nothing to do with what the card is, but where it is. So there's 2 rows here, and the bottom row are the only ones that are eligible. So I can see the ones that might become eligible soon, but the only ones that I actually could attract are these ones in the bottom row. And they are priced based on where they are. So the one in the bottom left costs 5, then 6, and then 7. So with 6, I could choose either this privileged citizen or this common citizen. And I might choose based on what role I need to fill, or I might choose based on some preference. Like I might say, oh, I'm just as happy with the common one. I'd rather do that and have it be less likely to be stolen later. So, or hey, I want some flexibility, and it's my choice. So if I have 6 to spend, I could buy from either of those positions. If I had 7, I could buy from any of the 3 bottom row positions. But no matter how much I have to spend, the top ones are not accessible to me. If I do acquire a citizen here, if I do attract a citizen, then everything just rotates around, and now the set that are available has shifted, it's changed. But again, we can see what are coming up. So that is how you spend influence and attract a citizen using influence. Once you're done, you discard all your cards and then draw up to 4, and then it would be the next player's turn. However, they're called event cards for a reason, and many of them, not all, but most of them have some effect if they're played as an event. So for example, Receive Homage is only worth 1 influence, but if I play it, I draw 2 cards off the top of the event deck, which, is very likely to get me 2 worth, which puts me in a better position, right? So then that's discarded, but I drew 2. You don't play with this face up. I have it that way for illustrative purposes. So now, I might even say swap here. This one, Royal Summons, I swap the location of any 2 citizens in the populace. Maybe there's one in the top row that I really wanted. I can bring it down and acquire it that way. Now, these cards that have the lion up in the top left the events are usable by anybody, but some of the events are cast specific events. So Inspire, for example, is a noble only event. So in order to play it, I must have somebody in the noble cast role on my fiefdom, or have my regent be of that cast. So each noble, it actually is of a cast, and so you start out with the ability to play that cast event cards. But each noble, there are 6 different casts, and the nobles are spread across the casts. So if I want to play Tithe, I must first see, okay, is my regent a religious, or do I have somebody in the religious role? And if I have like a privileged citizen here let's say in the noble role, that means I can play Inspire, but even though she has the religious cast on her, she's not assigned to that, so it doesn't give me the ability to play Tithe. So, and these cast-specific cards tend to be the stronger ones, the more interesting ones. And so as you're filling in your roles throughout the game, your options start to open up more and more. Obviously, all the cards can just be spent for influence. That's always an option, but you can do more and just have more options as you fill in all the roles. So, and each cast has many event cards that are unique to it and that are quite interesting, that are taking from other people's fiefdoms, that are, there's one that acquires a random card off the top of the deck, a random citizen off the top of the deck. Really neat stuff like that. So, so if you are, let's say, you have a more aggressive play style, you might say, okay, I'm going to be the warrior cast. I really want to be actively trying to conquer other people's fiefdoms and take their people. Whereas if you're a little more of a control oriented person, you might want to go like the religious route. And if you're more fair-minded, honestly, the trader has fun options where you're taking from people but paying, and then that all sort of affects what reactions can be played too. So some of the events are reactions, and these are also very interesting, but I think all the reactions are cast specific. So whether these can fire for you depends on whether you have somebody in that cast. So for example, the crafts cast has has Revolt, which says when a regent plays an event card, cancel the effect. Then that regent draws the top card off the event deck. So you just completely stop an effect, which, if it's an effect that was going to hurt you, that's pretty good. The traders are so terrible. Bargain lets you react to someone else attracting a citizen by bringing it to your fiefdom instead. So there's really terrible, terrible things you can do here. And sometimes too, what you're going to take from an opponent is going to be based on what types of actions you don't want them to have access to. So a lot of cool, deep strategy there in terms of setting yourself up properly and denying your opponents access to certain options through those events. So that's a really cool feature. And The last little bit that I want to cover here is we talked a little about the Regent, but once in a while you're going to end up in a turn where you only have 4 to spend, and so that means, you know, even though there's these citizens you really want, you only have 4 to spend, so you don't get to you aren't going to get to acquire anybody. And when that happens, you might once in a while end up with less than 4, but it's pretty rare, because if you just have 4 1 influence cards, you have 4. So you can spend 4 to not activate, but to prep your Regent power. And when you do that, you flip over your Regent card. Notice the slots are the same on the other side, so it's very nice there. But it prepares an action for you that can't be countered by any cards. So when you decide to do this action, in this case it would be on your turn, you're going to get to do it, and nobody gets to stop you. And so, for example, William Wallace's is Uprising. He would remove all the citizens from the populace, shuffle them into the citizen deck, and then reset the populace. So if you're saying, okay, now, so on your next turn, you have plenty to spend, but you don't like what's there, you just go ahead and totally reset it, and you flip his board back to show that you used it. If you have a future turn where you're down to 4-2, you could do it again. So and the different casts of Regent have different powers like that are very cool. So so who you choose as your Regent is going to affect not only what event cards you have access to actually play right off the bat, it's also going to affect what ability you have that you can get ready for the cost of 4. So so that's the game in a nutshell. And then before I sign off, I just want to give a little bit of attention to the artwork here, because it really is cool. And all the Regents that you're going to see here are real historical figures. They really existed. You get to learn a little bit about them as they're playing. As you're playing, it's just a very cool thing. So there's William Wallace. Here's Genghis Khan. And one of the things that I appreciate about this game, there are people in here that I didn't know about. But one of the things that I appreciate about the game is that there's iconography to explain to you what's going on, but then there's not these walls of text. There's not more than is required. There are games that I adore that are just have too many icons, and you know what I'm talking about probably. But this one really does a good job of making them unobtrusive, and that really just lets the art stand out. And this is all newly commissioned art, but very nice art that is, again, highlighting all the Regents, and I think a lot of the individual citizen cards too, maybe all of them, I'm not sure, are highlighting real people. And so it's just a very fun thing. And again, wherever possible, the art is just really front and center, taking up a lot of the cards standing out. So so you're not like, oh, can I see what's going on here? But the events are really the busiest, and even they're not too busy. But the citizens are just little pieces of art there on your table that you can play a game with. So yeah, that's it. That is Regency. One last, I keep adding things on, but one last thing I'll say. Obviously, I super recommend this. I think it's a great game. I think it's a good addition to any collection. But if you're not sure, if you're on the fence and you have Tabletop Simulator, you can go on and you can find and you can download this from the workshop and install it and try it out and get a feel for it for free. So do consider that. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me about them. But you can also look up, you can find James and some other projects that he's working on too for the future at peakgames.com. Peak is P-I-Q-U. So P-I-Q-U-E. So if you go to P-I-Q-U-E games.com, you can find more info there. And I will include a link to that. I will also include a link to the Kickstarter so that you can go sign up and get in as an early backer, hopefully. So thanks so much. Once again, this is Andrew, and hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed playing this when I was learning it, and I also enjoyed doing this. So I hope you enjoyed it too, and that you will. I wanted to say, forge some keys, but I'm going to say I hope you will attract some citizens and forge your fief.